We're now coming to the next slot, and I'm happy to announce Tom vanNorman. He's looking into healthcare. He's originally not exactly within healthcare, so he's an industrial control system and operational technology cybersecurity executive, deep experience in control system engineering, network architecture, and cyber physical risk management across critical infrastructures. That's where it hits healthcare in the end. As a 24-year U.S. Air Force veteran, he culminated his service on a national mission team with the Cyber Operations Squadron, conducting mission-focused cyber operations and defense. As a co-founder of ICS Village, the Industrial Control System Village, he develops hands-on trainings and environments and realistic attack simulations to advance ICS OT security capabilities for industry and government organizations. And I'm really happy to have you here to bring us a different perspective. So we talked about medical devices and security, patient safety from a clinical and cyber medical device perspective, but I'm happy to now hear your perspective on what else may influence patient safety in a hospital.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for having me here. You're right. Our talk today will be a little bit different from the other ones. We're going to talk about operational technologies within hospitals, and I like to call it the hidden lifeline of hospitals. What am I referring to? I'm referring to your building automation systems, so your HVACs, your clean rooms, your different conditioned air throughout your facility, your physical security system, so your badge readers to unlock your doors, to open up your different secured areas. Your security systems are all interconnected with each other. Your power distribution systems. Nothing works without electricity. We all think about electricity coming from the power grid, but what happens when that's not available from a natural disaster or from a cyber attack, or at times your power goes down because of the squirrels. So your emergency generators are a crucial thing, but what happens when they don't work? The fire alarm and the safety systems, again, we all take it granted the red box on the wall that we pull when we see smoke, we see fire, you pull that and you run the other way. But what happens when you pull it and it doesn't work? Or what happens when there's not a fire and it goes off? So your server rooms, a lot of your other unmanned spaces have fire sensors and smoke sensors and things like that. What happens when they go off and it's a false alarm, but they keep on going off because of a cyber incident? Your water and environmental monitoring systems. Clean water is crucial for patient care. We'll go through a couple of things with that. Your medical gas systems. Again, these things here are a lot of things that people take for granted, but your gas, whether it's oxygen or nitrogen or whatever kind of gas that you have in there, they're all monitored and controlled by your industrial control system. They're all connected one way or another. And then your communication system, such as your nurse call system. Your patient hits the button to call the nurse, or you need to call somebody else, and you pick up the phone and there's nothing there. That could cause some panic and some anxiety there, because how do you go and communicate with people now? So you're building automation systems. You're building automation systems, they're your heating, your ventilation, your air conditioning, your lighting goes in there. These are the systems that control your creature comfort within a building. They also control energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is a huge thing these days. Everybody's looking to save money, whether your hospital is or your facility is looking for the lead stamp on it for an energy efficiency, or whether you're just trying to reduce cost. A lot of these systems are tied into third-party vendors to measure your efficiency. A lot of your HVAC systems are tied into your support contractors that maintain it. So they might be getting efficiency data, they might be getting trouble calls. There's many things that your HVAC contractor can get from it. They can monitor the health and status of your system, automatically deploy technicians to repair something, control the heating and cooling, and balance your clean rooms with your ventilation. So all of these systems typically have some sort of remote connectivity for vendor support, third-party vendor support. And as we heard in the last session there with SBOM, talking about secondary and tertiary and on about knowing what what you're buying, uh, it's a point to think about. Are your HVAC vendors, how are they handling your data? How are your energy contractors handling that data? What kind of control do they have? Is it just monitoring? One of the things that I hear a lot is, well, we just have one-way data. We just monitor the system. Well, that's really not true in a connected network. A lot of times you do have connectivity back in. Your uh, contractor may be only pulling that data out, but if it's configured a different way, they'll be able to write back into your network. So just because they say we only have one-way data, validate that. And a lot of places do absolutely have uh, your third-party contractors coming in. And great point. I was going to leave Target out because Target was a several years ago now, but that's how the people got into Target's system is with the contractors. Your physical security systems. When we talk about security, we talk about network security and power plants or hospitals or water plants and things like that. One of the things that I always bring up is guards, gates, and guns. So, how much security do you need for your system? Uh, you know, a lot of people want to go and pick on the operators in the boiler room that have the little yellow sticky note with the username and password sticking on a monitor. In most cases, that's really not ideal. However, when you have locked doors, you have guards, you have gates, you have everything else, and that system has to be up and running and has to be able to be accessed. What is the risk for that? I value that as a pretty low risk because you have to penetrate many different layers of security to get to that. But what happens when your security system fails? You can't unlock that door, or your database for who can unlock what door gets compromised, gets scrambled, and something happens to it. And now somebody that's not supposed to have access does have access. Uh, it really creates a large problem. Where are the keys? How do you unlock those doors? What do you do? Uh, there's probably a lot of people here that have no idea where the keys are to unlock that door. And it's something to absolutely think about. But your physical security system, a lot of them again have remote access into them. A lot of them are not managed locally. If you're in a large, hospital network or provider network, th that stuff's somewhere else being managed, or it might be in the cloud. There's many different ways to deploy these. But think about what happens when you lose access to that, whether it's from a connectivity uh, compromise, you lose connectivity to it, or your database gets compromised, gets scrambled. How do you unlock those doors? How do you continue operations? Do you prop the doors open with a chair or something to hold it? Well, now you just screwed up your HVAC system. You screwed up your balancing. You screwed up your heating and cooling. In a time of crisis, that may not matter. However, tabletop these things before it happens to understand what could happen and how to react to it. Power distribution systems. The normally your squirrel's the biggest culprit here in your power distribution system issues that you have. You lose power at home, it's probably the squirrel. It's probably not the evil hackers somewhere. It's probably the squirrel. However, we've seen in Ukraine twice. We've seen in other parts of the world, cyber threats are absolutely a real thing. The power coming in can cut off, but what happens when that emergency generator does not start? Did you put that into your incident response plan? Did you put that into your tabletop exercise? You probably did, but now your switchgear does not switch because of a cyber event. What do you do? When you go into these high voltage or medium voltage substations, rather, or even a low voltage one, you go down to the hallway, and there's a lot of really big switch gears. You throw that breaker, and just the power, just the energy that goes through that, it's not something that everybody wants to do. How do you do it? What are you looking at? So your power distribution systems absolutely are something that you should be monitoring. You should be looking at. You should be patching, upgrading whenever possible. Keep an eye on them. From my experience, your switchgear and things like that, they don't really have a whole lot of remote access into it. What you have are people that come on site to maintain them and monitor and things like that. But your power meters absolutely do. So your control part, not so much, but your monitoring part, absolutely. Your fire alarm and life safety systems. Uh, every building has them, right? Your pull boxes on the wall, your sensors up in your ducts to detect smoke, to detect you know carbon monoxide, things of that nature. Your fire suppression system. When you have your fire alarm go off time and time again, and you're trying to evacuate your floor, your hospital, your area, only to find out it is a cyber attack, or only to find out you don't know what is going on, that can get quite frustrating and dangerous for patients, for people, for everybody. How do you move the people out? Uh, not only patients, but your employees. There's personal data there. There could be other things around that you don't want out in the open. You lock them up, you run, but now you find out it's a cyber attack. Now that's on one extreme. And what happens if the panel goes out due to an attack and you cannot do anything? You pull the box, nothing happens. Now, I would hope that that would not ever be the case, but what happens if ransomware gets into your system here? We've all seen ransomware attacks just pick up over the last 2, 3 years. Reading an article today that in 2024, ransomware attacks were up 30% from 2023, and 2024 to 5, they were up even more than that. So when you're talking about ransomware, they're not looking at if it's a fire suppression system or a building management system or any of that. They're just looking for opportunities. Water and environmental monitoring systems. So your temperature, humidity, your water quality, all have to stay within a safe range. Now, you can say, well, our water qualities, there's filters on the wall over there that will filter and treat the water coming in, and absolutely, you are correct. But you also have online monitoring for them. How do you know that water is safe? Just because it runs through the filter does not mean it's safe. Your monitor that will go and measure the water and make sure it's within certain parameters, that'll tell you it's safe. Not that it ran through the filter, but the monitors tell you that it's safe. Temperature, environmental conditions. We're seeing a lot of those now connected. We'll use the term IIoT or IoT. You put a sensor somewhere, it's going to connect wirelessly to a dashboard, and you can measure the temperature, humidity, things of that nature. A lot of these devices are now interconnected. We don't see a whole lot of them for control. The control ones are normally tied into your building management system, but it's also a place for your attacks to come in and happen. We've seen that in Las Vegas few years ago with the fish tank temperature sensor that they put up, and it was a way to get into the network. So your water environmentally monitoring systems, they can be considered your operational technology or your OT devices also. Your medical gas systems, oxygen, nitrogen, nitrous oxide for patient care, things like that. Those are your big tanks out, usually in the back of your building or off the side of the building, painted white, big cryogenic tanks, or you might have some sort of a compressor in there to make your own oxygen or nitrogen. They are all controlled by programmable logic controllers or PLCs or some sort of embedded device. These things that your embedded devices are your devices that are locked into a control cabinet somewhere that has an Ethernet cable connected to them, might have a cellular connection to it back to the uh, supplier. When that level gets low, they come out with a truck and they fill it. It's magic. It just happens. However, what happens when that doesn't happen? Your cellular connection or your wireless connection or however that's getting back to your supplier no longer makes it, or that number is changed. The tank's really at 10% and the reading's at 25%, and they're supposed to deliver it at, 20%, we'll say, but it's off. What happens when you get down to a critical level with that? I would hope that there are backup systems to that. I know when you go down the boiler rooms and a lot of the other utility environments, there is a person that goes around on an interval, whether it be daily or a couple times a week, and manually take a reading of those systems. When you talk about boilers and your water, it's usually hourly or every few hours. But when you, my point is here, unless you have somebody walking around and checking that, that number might be different. How do you know it's not? How do you know your secondary vendor or your tertiary vendor isn't compromised? So your telco, we've seen with the Volt series, your Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, your Typhoon series here, they did infect telco, your major telcos. So talk about your AT&T, your Verizons, and T-Mobiles, and your large carriers. So if you're relying on cellular technology to report this back, what happens if it's wrong? Would they target your hospital or your facility? I would hope not. But what happens if it's ransomware and it is just opportunity to take down something? Your communication and nurse call systems. You pick up the phone and we all take for granted that, it rings on the other end. What happens when it doesn't? Or your nurse call systems, right? The buttons in the bed there. Some of this stuff's more easy to mitigate, right? Your nurse call systems, you might have somebody walk up down the hallway to see if anybody needs help. But when you pick up the phone to call somebody on a different floor, different part of your facility, and it doesn't work, what do you do then? Do you have radios? Do you have extra people to be runners? These are all things that are interconnected that directly affect your patient care uh, that you might not think about. So your common threats and vulnerabilities. How do we go and lower the risk or mitigate them? Ransomware is still huge. Uh, Ransomware has been around a while. We all know about it. We probably read too much about it, and we're probably a little bit deaf to it. But ransomware is still a very large concern. One of the reasons why it's still so effective in some industries is the use of legacy hardware, legacy technology. We're not patching and upgrading everything the way we might would like to. There's reasons for that though, right? So you can't patch everything. You can't fix everything. So you have to do the vulnerability assessment and see what things have a more critical impact than others. But ransomware, you get that in your control system, whether you be your building automation system that came from a contractor, came from that USB stick, came from the contractor coming in with their computer to service the system. I see that's one of the things that I point out when I do vulnerability assessments is your third party contractors, when they come in, are they using computers provided by you as the asset owner, or are they bringing their own computers in? If they're bringing their own computers in, how are those computers monitored? How are those computers being monitored, patched, upgraded, things of that nature? Because they were probably at, if they visit you on Friday, they probably were at 8 other facilities that week. That's how you can go and spread ransomware, viruses, malware pretty easily. So it's not wrong for any of us to ask your contractor or your IT group or anybody that how are we slowing down ransomware? I don't think you're going to stop it, but you can certainly slow it down. And vendors coming in, what are you doing about the ransomware and the malware and the viruses and stuff? How are you preventing it? Phishing attacks. Uh, we are our own worst enemy on this one here. So a lot of us here, we've been through phishing exercises where the security team will send out an email and it's, bonuses dot XLS or whatever dot, XDoc or docx. We all open it. Why? Because we're all interested. So you open up that phishing email, you see that bonus document, we're going to click on it or something else, right? You see that document or that link, or it looks like your coworker is going to place a Chinese order for lunch today. They send out a link, say, "Hey, place your order on the Chinese restaurant," and it turns out it's not. That link is a malicious link. Now, where phishing is really, really, really difficult is we've all clicked on links that we don't understand. You go to a large online retailers and you hit the little share button and it comes up with a doesn't come with www their name and a URL or characters behind it. It comes up with some obscure shortened tiny URL thing that none of us understand. Even though that a lot of us in security, we look at some of these URLs, we don't get them. So I don't know how we expect our employees or coworkers in our company to fully understand URLs when they get pretty darn complicated. They get embedded, they get redirected, they get all kinds of crazy things now. That's why you have to have the technology. Your security team or IT team has to employ technology to stop it. Humans, we're going to click on things, and that's just how we are. Your legacy systems, especially in OT, your legacy systems are everywhere. These systems are designed to run for 10, 15, 20 years. It's not uncommon for me to go out and look at a system and find the old firewall that has not been patched or upgraded in 6 years. It's also not uncommon to find a controller that manages that power distribution system or that water filtration system that's 15 years old. These are systems that run 24/7, 365 in the basement of a building behind a metal panel that people forget about. Uh, when we buy them and when we engineer them for longevity. We engineer them that they work every single time, say 24/7, 365. They are very costly to upgrade, but that's also cost of doing business. You have to upgrade them. If you cannot upgrade them, you put them on your capital expenditure, but it's 3 years from now. That's where your defense in depth comes in. Isolate them from the rest of your system. Put that zero trust technology or firewalls or some sort of segmentation device in front of those legacy systems and only allow the traffic that's designed to be accepted and communicated out of that. You get ransomware in a lot of these legacy systems, you're not going and recovering very quickly at all. A lot of times you're going to rip and replace, but you're going to go from a Windows 7 device to a Windows 11. Now it's a code rewrite. Now it's a complete upgrade, long and costly. Think about these things ahead of time, and at some point in time you have to replace them. But if you can't replace them for years, which is totally understandable and acceptable, defense in depth, isolate them on your network, control what goes in and out. Make it harder for your attacker to gain access. IoT devices. I think we all see that there's a continued increase of connectivity for good and bad. A lot of it is good, but it also increases the attack surface. So when you have your contractors, your third and fourth party vendors, or even 1099 employees or contractors coming into work, what are they doing and how are they accessing these things? Or you put these devices on patients and they go out and connect to a different Wi-Fi spot at home or at Starbucks or somewhere and send that data out. Where's that data going? What is the vendor doing with that data, and can it be compromised? Is it a path back into others' people data? Can they compromise that data? Can they get back in the hospital? So ask the questions on how's that data stored stored at rest? How's that data being encrypted in transit? So push back on them, ask them, how's that data being secured? Insider threats, that is still a real thing. Your insider threats, whether it's from unintentional or malicious employees or contractor staff coming in, go through your background check, go through other checks, make sure that you've covered the insider and not saying, well, they work for us, they're safe. No, lock out your ports, your unused network ports. Only provide the the least access that they need. And then we are almost out of time here, so a couple of things for prevention: create an incident response plan, create a defensible architecture, network visibility and monitoring. That's a big one. You're going to spend all the time to go and secure your network. Now you have to monitor your network to make sure that what you just deployed for security is working. So your network visibility and monitoring, secure remote access. There's no reason why you cannot have secure remote access to any facility. However, there's good ways and bad ways to do it. And then your risk-based vulnerability management program. Not everything needs to be patched. Not everything needs to be completely updated. Figure out what does. Focus on that stuff. Create the defense in depth for everything. Create your network monitoring so you can see what's going on your network. And the controls are not in order of importance. And we are out of time. Conclusion here.
Thank you, Tom, for shedding light on this hidden lifeline and showing us more attack surface, more surface to protect, and that ransomware does not only apply to your medical devices or respectively IT systems mostly, and the clinically visible stuff, but also for everything else that we depend on in a hospital. There is one question. If you have a quick answer, or if you come across that, otherwise this would be for the hospitals in the room or in the group. The question is, do hospitals have a risk-based process on these systems to determine that they should always have a secondary workaround or oversight, or is it ad hoc, usually only after an issue occurs? So it basically burns down to, does anybody do any prospective protection, or is it mostly retrospectively?
In terms of Operational technology
Correct.
systems.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
looking into the OT space.
that's something we're doing, and some of my other peers out in the field that we've talked about. A year and a half ago, we did an inventory assessment of where we are with OT. And so I started asking around to other HTOs, and they're like, "You're doing what?" So it's kind of concerning. But we're kind of building that out. Specifically, and I think Tom, you touched on it. Humidity sensors in operating rooms. If you get a certain past a certain percentage, you're not having operations done that day, whether critical or not, because you'll breed bacterial infections and so on and so forth. So we need backups for those things. We need redundancy for sensing whether or not there's a challenge there. Um, these are things that we're starting to look at, but it's also, unfortunately, it's a balance against cost, right? If it's a necessary operation, do I, redirect the patient to a different hospital? If it's inpatient care, do I have the capabilities to move them to a different hospital is another question that comes up. So we're starting to ask these questions as, again, these things become more and more modern architecture, right? They have modern Windows 10, Windows 11 now operating systems. They're using JavaScripts for portals. JES is a system that we use on some of our hospitals. It's an interconnected property system, property business administration system. It allows you access into Siemens turbines and things like that, and backup generators and Philips generator. And it's all these wonderful, magical things. All magic comes at a price.
Yeah.
So the price is you have to patch it. Imagine my surprise when the first time I walked in on a guy using this system, he was doing it on a Windows 7 box connected to the internet. How fast do you think I removed that system? Right? I mean, I literally almost yanked it out the wall. But these are things, right? These are challenges that we're running into, and it's going to get better, but I think it's the whole rationalization first, understand cost versus risk analysis, and then, 7 stages of grief, right?
Yeah.
Acceptance. And we come up with a plan and we move forward.
Thank you, Mike, for the HGO perspective. Sounds familiar
Yeah.
from
I
like
used to have a full head
years
of hair.
ago.
It was great. Beautiful. One point.
And thank you, Tom, again for these insights. And we now move to a break, a longer break, 30 minutes.